Hey guys, welcome to Beginner's Guitar for Idiots. There's a series of videos I want to try and put together, really just to help the person who's just got their very first guitar. You've probably been strolling around guitar shops, just walking up to guitars going, yeah, it looks cool, but not really knowing what to play on them. Hopefully by this point you've already got your very first guitar, probably given to you by your parents. Whether it's acoustic or electric, this point doesn't matter. All the skills and techniques, pretty much all of them will transfer from one to the other. There will be instances where they deviate, and we can try and approach those as we get to them. But for now, it's really just going to be about, starting off playing in tune for a start, getting your fingers moving, and trying to give you guys a few, kind of little things that you can play with that you can make your own, so that you can get playing quickly. Very often when you go to guitar lessons, whether it's one-on-one tutorship or maybe in more of a school format, it can be a little bit tedious, a little bit boring. Starting from the beginning, trying to learn, sort of advanced techniques and concepts. A lot of it has to be done through repetition. There's no real way around that. But if you approach it a little bit differently through the gateway of rock music, then you can there's a few patterns and things that you can learn that will make it easy to get up and running quickly. So that's what we're going to try and talk about. Before you can start, however, you really need to know, what the parts of the guitar are, what they do, how to get the guitar in tune. That's going to be a real big help. It's no good, you could be the best player under the sun, but if the instrument isn't tuned properly, then you're just, nobody's going to like the sound of it and nobody's going to let you practice. So yeah, if we could start off with the very basics, then that'll set you up well to start learning, hopefully trouble-free. So I've got a guitar here in front of me. This is based on the Fender Stratocaster design, but this guitar is made by a company called Blade. It's a Levinson RH4 Stratocaster. So main things here, you've got control system. This is the volume knob over here. Mine's a bit dirty, which is where that scratching sound's coming from. You also have a tone control, which is this little guy over here. What that does is it kind of filters out certain harmonics. Don't worry about the term harmonics for now, but just imagine it as little parts of the information that make up a note. And you can change the tone. You'll hear guitar players going on about tone all the time. And tone is very important. And developing an ear for it is quite a long process, and you can only do it through playing for many years and just listening. Try to use your ears. But really, if you listen carefully, then this is what it does. If I just play a little phrase, and then if I wind the tone off, yeah, so pretty simple. Just filters some of the frequencies out, and you can use that, as one tool in your tool bag of playing. Another concept for electric guitars is very important, is the pickups themselves. You have what's known as a bridge pickup, middle pickup, and a neck pickup. This particular guitar has 3 sets. However, you will have guitars that have 2 pickups, one in the neck position and one in the bridge position, and you will have guitars that only have 1 pickup. Usually that would just be located in the bridge position. Now, I keep talking about bridge position and neck position. Bridge position pickup is called the bridge position pickup because it's right next to the bridge. this is the bridge. This is the part of the guitar that's used to anchor the strings. Okay, it has to be a very hard, consistent surface, and what the objective really is to give a good platform for the strings to vibrate. Okay, and that's really the source of the sound. Next thing that's important would obviously be, as I referred to, the neck pickup earlier. So you've got the neck of the guitar. On top of the neck, you have what we call frets, okay, which are the wire sections over here. That's really important because it marks out all the positions of the notes. Most guitars have frets, and it's probably the thing that makes it quite an easy instrument to pick up and play. Whereas, say, for example, a violin has no frets, so you really have to be very accurate with your fingers to get a good note out of it. So you could argue that a guitar is a much easier instrument to start than, say, for instance, a violin. But there's its own set of complications that come along with it because of that, and limitations. So it's not to say one is better than the other, but certainly one is easier, I think, to get started on than the other. Next thing you'll notice on the what we call the fingerboard, which is where the frets are situated, is there's a series of dots spaced out at regular intervals. These are called position markers, and when you're starting out playing guitar, these are going to come in very handy. So we'll be using those at the end of the lesson. Okay, moving further up to the guitar, on the headstock, okay, it's a section of the guitar that again serves as another anchor point for the strings. Very close to that, where it meets with the neck, you have what's called a nut. And again, that's an anchoring point. Again, usually made of quite a hard substance, bone, and in some cases plastic. You can get, ones made of carbon. Some of them are roller systems that are actually made out of steel or of brass. They all have their own sound and their own reasons for being used, but you don't really have to worry about that too much now unless it breaks. Okay, and then just moving past that, you've then got the machine heads, which is a structure that the ends of the strings actually go into. And then you have the tuning pegs that are connected to those. And the tuning pegs are obviously the thing that are going to allow you to adjust tension, which will allow you to string your guitar for a start, but also to get it in tune. Okay, so that would probably be the next thing really logically to move on to from here, is tuning your guitar. Now, a guitar like this, I have it set up in standard tuning, okay? Nothing fancy going on here, no drop tunings yet. We can get into that later. And really what you need to do when you're tuning a guitar, first thing you want to do is buy yourself a decent tuner. It's an invaluable piece of kit, and if you get a good one first time round, it will probably serve you for your whole lifetime and you'll never need to change it. There's a couple ones I can recommend right out the door, which are the Boss TU12, which is a handheld tuner, but you can use it on a pedal board. And the Boss TU3, if you just want to go straight for a pedal tuner. Once you've had a few years experience using a tuner of that sort of ilk, then if you want to buy a more advanced tuner, you'll know what you're doing with it. They're also relatively inexpensive. From what I remember, a TU12, which is the handheld tuner, they're probably about £19.99, so call it £20. And a TU3 tuner, the current Boss pedal tuner, they're only about £50, depending, give or take, depending on which shop you go to. Very, very handy piece of kit. The other thing you're going to need, if you don't have an amplifier, it's not the end all right now. You can get one later for sure. But you will need a cable to attach your electric guitar to your tuner. So there should be a little input jack on it, and you'll need what's called a 1/4-inch jack. And that's what a 1/4-inch jack looks like. Okay. basically a much bigger version of what plugs your headphones into your iPod. However, it only sends one signal, whereas the cable that comes out of your iPod for your headphones sends at least two signals. So for your headphones left and right, whereas a guitar is just a mono signal, so it only needs one. Okay, so once you have these elements in place, then you can obviously try to tune your guitar. So the notes, if we start from the lowest note and work our way up, you have an E note, A note, a D note, G, B, and E. So you'll notice that the first string, the lowest string, and the top string, they are the same note. One is lower, one is higher. And this is what we call an octave. In the musical scales, if we had to count from this E and play every single note up the fretboard until we got to the 12th position, which is up here, which when you're looking down at your guitar neck will have two dots marking its position. That's what we call an octave. So it's made up by what we call semitones. So each note, so if we play through them, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, and so on and so forth. Then we eventually come back to E, and that's made your octave. Okay, so now back to tuning a guitar, the importance of tuning a guitar. Even having it out by a little bit makes a big difference to how you're going to hear your music when you practice. You tend to develop much more confidence if the guitar is in tune. I remember first learning tablature, trying to learn, my favorite Metallica song, and because it wasn't in tune, I kept second guessing myself, thinking, oh no, the tabs must be wrong, or the tabs are right, but I'm just not playing it right. What am I doing wrong? And getting very, very mixed up because the guitar just wasn't 100% in tune, and I just didn't know it yet. So eventually what happened was my best friend's mother just came into the rehearsal room, grabbed our instruments from us and started tuning them for us because it was driving her nuts while she was cooking in the kitchen. Yeah, this is what effect it's going to have on your neighbors if you don't tune your guitar properly. Okay, so what we'll do is show you how to tune your guitar, and this will help every time you restring it. And then once it's in tune, then obviously you can go ahead and begin your practice. Okay, so all you have to do is you can tune the open strings to begin with. And what I mean by open is just by plucking the string simply, okay, without using any other fingers. And from there, you can use the tuning heads to eventually get it back to the note that you need it to be at. Okay, it should be, if you're restringing the guitar and the strings are completely devoid of tension, then you're obviously going to start with quite extreme movements. So what you would need to do is buy something called a string winder. Very handy little piece of kit. It just fits onto the tuning head and allows you to wind it at a much higher speed than when you're actually trying to tune the guitar. Once you get the note fairly close to what you think it should be, then it's only small adjustments. So maybe quarter of a turn or a half a turn. If you're a little further away, maybe a turn at a time. But don't go nuts, because when I first bought a tuner, I usually went too high past the note, and once or twice ended up breaking a string because it just didn't know where to stop. So what you want to do is probably first few times is actually refer to this video and copy the sound as closely as you can, and then try to fine-tune it using your own tuner at home. Okay, so start with the E string. I'll just activate my tuner. Okay, so my tuner is a pedalboard tuner. It's connected in line with all my other effects, so I can access at any time during the middle of a song. If I'm on stage and I hear something that's a little funny, then I can actually switch it on while I'm playing without really affecting the sound at all, and just have a quick glance at it, and I'll know if there's an issue, and the first chance I get in the middle of the song I can make a fine quick adjustment. But if we move away from that and just go back to the basics, what I do is play the open note of the string. I have a look at my tuner, and there's a green light in the middle and a red light either side of it, and the red lights flash. Okay, now what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and play the note until only the green light is showing with the letter corresponding to the note that I want to play. So if it's E, then I'm looking for an E note displayed on the tuner, and I'm eventually going to try and get the lights to flash, red lights to flash faster and faster and faster, which means I'm getting closer until eventually the red light disappears altogether and it's only a green light left. So usually what I'll do is just play the open note. At the moment it's showing quite flat. Very small adjustment. And keep picking the note fairly regularly, not too hard. You can be quite gentle. Okay, it's fairly close, but I think I can get it closer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play what's called an open string harmonic. Okay, this is going to control the vibration of the string a lot more, so it can be precise. When I play the open note, especially on the thickest strings, the string doesn't really vibrate very consistently, so it can go slightly above or slightly below the note, and you get a bit of a mixed reading from the tuner. This is also why it's important to pick pretty gently rather than pick it too hard. You could hear it go. It sort of raises and lowers and deviates from the note, whereas if you pick it just consistently but gently, it's much more steady. But to give it even more steadiness, I play an open string harmonic. Okay, and the way we do that is just rest your finger, any finger, very, very lightly over the 12th fret, which is marked by the 2 dots. And if you pick it and just pull your finger away from the string as at the same time that you make the pluck, then you get this kind of sound again. Okay. If I have a look at my tuner now, where it was showing as E steady before, but just wavering a little, it's actually showing slightly flat now. So it does make a big difference. Right, that's it, pretty steady now. So, minute adjustment. Okay. Next string is A, so follow the same procedure. That one's pretty good first time. Right, if you go past the note, so I've gone too high now, what you need to do is just wind off probably half a turn and then just slowly take it back up. Okay, and the reason why we wind it down, go all the way down and then come all the way back, is because the string is moving through the nut. And often what happens, especially depending on the guitar, is it can get caught in the nut on its way past. And you wouldn't really know that there was an issue there. So when you go to try and do a technique, maybe say bending a string, which you do quite a lot in rock guitar, and then you play the note again, what you find is that you've now pulled the excess tension through the nut, and it's no longer the note that you actually try to tune it to. So when making large adjustments always tune further down and then pull it back up to close to where you need it. Okay, then the last couple of strings, so G. Alright, so that's our guitar in tune. So once again, tuning notes sound like... And there we go. Right, once you've got that done, then you're ready to actually try and start playing. If you're going to try and use tablature, which is a really good idea if you want to learn your favorite songs and that kind of thing, they're readily available on the internet. Takes a bit of trial and error. Some people do their tabs more accurately than others, and you'll see quite often somebody who's released a tab may come back after 2 or 3 weeks and say, oh, well, actually, I think I've figured out a better way to play that part. So try not to get too mixed up by that. Try to trust your ear. If you follow the tuning guide, if something sounds wrong, it probably is wrong. And you know, you can try to use your ear to fix that, or you can try and look for a better version of the tablature. But before you can actually, you know, learn to run like that, really, which is learn songs straight out of tablature, what you're going to find if you just go straight to that, and I'm not saying don't, by all means jump in, but what you'll find is your fingers don't really want to go where you tell them to go. You can see it right in front of your face, and yet they just won't do it, not as quickly as you'd like them to. So that has to do with basic coordination. Okay, so we're going to do 2 exercises that will just focus on basic coordination. One of them, unfortunately, is a little bit boring, but it's a great warm-up, and you'll probably find, I mean, I've been playing 18 years now, and I still use this to warm up before shows. It's one of those things I can play without the guitar being plugged in, while another band is on. While I've got a bit of time, I could just do it over and over again, so when I get onto the stage, then my fingers are ready to move. So, but when you're starting out, literally it is going to get each one of your 4 fingers moving independently. So all you need really to start out with this is a plectrum. They come in different thicknesses and in slightly different sizes. I use one that's kind of a medium thickness, nothing fancy, just the standard shape. I find that really works well. I play a mixture of rhythm and lead guitar, so I do a bit of soloing, but also do a lot of rhythms. I have to play quite fast, but because I use quite a variety of different kind of styles, I find a middle thickness is very good for me. If you're just more interested in playing, like, I don't know, say very, very fast rhythm guitar, which is just lots of chords, you know, that kind of thing. Then what you're going to find is, you know, a slightly harder plectrum might be a bit better for you. Offers very good control. But it's going to be something you're going to have to play around with. You will experiment with plectrum for years. So, yeah, it's just one of those things. You can't really just teach someone to buy a plectrum. They just have to try a few, figure out what's comfortable for them, and maybe in 10 years' time you might actually settle down on one. Okay, so now it's time to learn just play a basic exercise. So in terms of using your fingers and learning to use tablature to play your favorite songs. It's a good idea if you start getting in the habit of considering each of your left-hand fingers as having a particular number. It's really, really important when you're learning tabs. A lot of good tablature will actually tell you which finger to use and where. So as not to make it more difficult than it ought to be in terms of trying to get from one place on the fingerboard to another place. So if you consider your index finger to be 1, middle finger 2, ring finger 3, and your little pinky is number 4, and kind of use that as a rule whenever you're approaching tabs, then you should be fine. If it's tabs that somebody's just simply put up on the internet themselves, then there's a good bet that they won't include the finger placement numbers, so you're just going to have to try and figure that out on your own. But more commercially available books will tend to give you the finger placement numbers. Yeah, so in terms of what you actually have to do with your thumb, it changes a little bit depending on the situation that you're playing. But a good starting point would be to have your thumb placed vertically on the back of the neck. Okay, for the purposes of this exercise, we're only going to be using from the 1st fret to the 4th fret, and we're just going to be playing those repetitiously. So you want to try and place your thumb upright on the back of the neck between the 1st and 3rd frets, so ideally somewhere around the 2nd fret. And basically just try and line up your fingers from 1 to 4 with their corresponding frets. But at this point, you only need the 1st finger pressing down on the string, the E string, on the 1st fret. Okay, next thing you want to do is try to keep some kind of sense of rhythm here. So a good idea is if you get a metronome. Some tuners will have a metronome built in it. It's a nice feature to get. The Boss TU12 that I mentioned earlier, that has a metronome built into it, which is another really good reason to get it. So it's a very good practice aid, and it's just a tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock that will keep steady rhythm, and it'll help you develop a sense of timing. You might think you've got great rhythm, but until you record yourself and listen to it back, you probably find out that your rhythm's not as hot as you think it is. So for the purposes of this, though, assuming that you don't have a metronome at this point, what you want to do is probably just tap either of your feet, doesn't matter, pick one, whatever you're more comfortable with, and just try and tap that to a steady rhythm. We're going to go fairly slow. Once you're confident with it, you can speed it up to your heart's content. And the exercise just goes like this, really. We're just going to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 on each of the strings, starting from the thickest to the thinnest. And then we're going to reverse that, so we're going to go 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, until we get from the thinnest down to the thickest. Okay, and it should sound something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, yeah, it's not the most pleasant sounding thing. It's based on what we call a chromatic scale, which is, basically makes no musical sense at this point unless you're a jazz artist. So you can pretty much ignore how it sounds. What you're looking for is steady time, and you're looking for clean notes. So when I say clean notes, you're trying to avoid buzzing, okay? If you use the thumb in the position which I recommended earlier, which is to have it pointing straight up on the back of the neck, it should, start to encourage the right kind of finger strength. And what you want to avoid is this kind of where the note dies early or it's buzzy and messy, which is kind of, I'll try and do it. It's difficult when you know how. that kind of a sound. Okay, it should ring loud and clear. Okay. The second part to this is that you want to use the correct picking technique. Okay. You'll hear, depending on the style of music that you listen to, if you read interviews with bands and things like that, you will hear people talking about different types of picking technique. There's alternate picking, which is what we're going to use, which is to use the pick in an up and down fashion. You'll hear people talking about down picking, which is much more rhythm based, which tends to be just only letting the pick contact the strings on the downward stroke rather than down and up. And then you'll hear concepts about sweep picking and things like this, and obviously finger picking. Sweep picking is much more advanced. We're a long way from that yet. And it's typically used in heavy metal music at very, very high speed. It's a way of getting from one note to another across a large gap sonically, and back again with minimal effort. And then fingerpicking, as you'll see, is much more common on acoustic guitar, but it has its place on electric guitar as well, and it's really whichever is appropriate for the sound or for the situation. But the most common one, and the one that most people would use, in terms of making it as easy as possible for themselves, which is what you want to do at the end of the day, is alternate picking, which is just the down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay? So this is the kind of picking that we want to use on this exercise. And as I say, you start off slowly, and as you get more confident with it, you can start to build up speed, but the notes must be clear and they must be consistent in timing, so you should complete the entire exercise before you actually try to make it go faster. So I'll play that a little bit quicker for you and just focus on the right hand with the down, up, down, up. Okay. Yeah, so simple enough. The next thing you want to do with that exercise, once you're just used to that generally, is you want to actually play it all the way up and down the neck. And obviously when you've got a bit of confidence, a bit of speed, it will start to flow a little bit more quickly, and it won't be as much of a pain in the backside as it is when you first start doing it. It's really important to take whatever exercises you learn and learn to play them in every single position up and down the neck. And it's really because of muscle memory. If you can get your muscles to remember what it felt like playing in all these different positions, because the frets at the top of the neck are spaced far apart, and the tension of the strings closer to the nut is much higher. So there's a way that feels. Whereas when you play further up the neck, then there's a little ease up on the tension, but the frets are quite close together. And then obviously when you get very high up the neck, then the tension goes back up again, but the frets are even closer together. And your thumb has less space to work. So it's very important to actually try these things out. You could practice your whole life just in one part of the neck, and if somebody said to you, "Oh, can you play that exact same thing at the top of the neck?" you'd probably make a mistake the first time out, no matter how long you'd been playing. So it's a really good idea to, whatever you learn, try it in as many different places on the neck as possible. Okay, so once you have that up and running, then that's a good way of checking that you can play the one note at a time cleanly. Next thing we'll do is just take a quick look at power chords. It's a term that's thrown around in rock music quite a lot, and it's just basically, they're actually not real chords really, but they're chords that you can play together without really being able to muck it up and make it sound too bad, which is why I like them, and it's why I usually introduce people to them very early. And this is more the fun kind of part of the lesson really, which is something you can take home. Once you're used to it, you can start to come up with songs and make up patterns and things like that. And A riff is any repetition of a sequence of chords or notes. It doesn't really matter, it's just a reoccurring theme within a song. So I can give you an example of this. I mean, a riff could be anything like, let's have a look. Okay, pretty simple. Right there you can see how just 3 chords can sound really cool. So the type of chord that I'm using here is what's often referred to as a power chord. It's really just 2 notes. It's actually not really even a proper chord. But because of its simplicity, it's very easy to put it into songs and move it around to different positions, and you can't really go wrong with it. As long as you keep the pattern the same, you can pretty much move it anywhere and it'll sound half decent. So it's a really great way for you to start playing in different places around the neck. You can start doing this by just playing it on 2 strings and moving it around, and you can come up with some pretty cool sounds. What we're going to do though is we're going to try a bit of just sliding it around from different places, but we're also going to try and use another string. So we're going to use at least 3 strings here. So at the beginning we're just going to start with 2 strings. So what I want you to do is place your thumb as you did before, upright behind the 2nd fret. Take your index finger and put that onto the E string on the 1st fret. Give that a good squeeze. Play the note. Just check that it's sounding out correctly. Take your ring finger and put that on to the A string on the 3rd fret, so where the 1st dot is, and just play that and check that it works. Okay, so that's a C note. So F and C together give you a power chord. Okay. What we're going to do is just play that in a steady 1, 2, 3, 4 rhythm. So okay, that's stage 1. Right, now take the exact same shape. Don't do anything to your fingers other than slide the whole lot up to where you see the 1st dot on the top of your neck. So the index finger will be on the 3rd fret of the E string, and your ring finger will be on the 5th fret of the A string, which will produce a D note. Okay, play them together. Okay, then next we're going to slide that up to the next dot, which is having your index finger now on the 5th fret of the E string, and your ring finger is going to be on the 7th fret of the A string, which gives you an E note and an A note. So this is A and E, and that's an A power chord. Okay, so we're going to play okay, so it's 4 in the 1st position, 4 in the 3rd position, and then 8 times in the 5th position. So when I say position, I'm talking about really where your index finger is starting off. Okay, the second time we're going to play that through twice, okay, that whole sequence twice, and then we're going to play another sequence. And this will just show you how moving it around will put a little bit of a different spin on it. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to play in the 1st position 4 times, in the 3rd position another 4 times, but then we're going to jump up a string. So we're going to take the index finger and put that onto the 5th fret of the A string, which gives you the D, and the ring finger on the 7th position on the D string, which gives you an A, which gives you a D power chord. Okay, we're going to play that 4 times, and then we're going to move that just down 1 semitone. Okay, so this time you're going to be playing between the dots. So between the first dot that you see and the second dot that you see on your fingerboard. And the notes that you get from that is, in this case, a D flat and an A flat. And they're called flats because we're moving downwards from the D. If I was to play a lower note and move up, I would then call it a C sharp. But we'll get back into that a little bit later when we talk about scales. For now, all you need to know is that your index finger is going to finish up on the 4th fret of the A string, and your ring finger will be on the 6th fret of the D string. Okay, so if we play that second sequence on its own, okay, once you got that down, then you want to combine the two. Okay, so we're going to play the first segment twice and the second segment twice. Okay, and this is what it'll sound like. Okay, and that's basically the end, really, of this lesson. So have fun with that. Try and move it around to different places. So, move it, sometimes jump, skip 1 fret like we have in this instance, moving from F to G. Or if you want to try something different, you can leave out the spaces and just play, from 1 fret to another, but just beware that you can't keep doing that because that generates just one type of sound. Really, at the end of the day, what makes music tick, in terms of melody anyway, which is what we're trying to deal with here, is the spacing between each note. If the spacing is the same all the time, it's going to sound the same. But if you mix it up a little bit now and again and just change the pattern, then that's when you're going to find some interesting and cool sounds. And at the end of the day, all of this is based around patterns. So this is just dipping your toe into the water and just experiencing those patterns for the first time. So the first exercise is to get your fingers moving and get a bit of finger strength. And same thing really with this exercise, except it's a bit more musical. But really what I want you to try and do is take the chords from the second exercise, move them around to different places and play them on different strings, and try different rhythms with them, and you can come up with something cool. Get yourself a little 30-watt amplifier, like a bus, micro amplifier, something like that, a Roland amp. If you've got buddies who are learning to play, hopefully bass and drums, get in a garage somewhere. Get your parents' permission probably is a good idea because you'll be making a racket. But get playing with people, and be creative with it, have fun with it, and you'll soon see that you start to come up with some songs and some ideas for songs and things like that. And it's pretty easy to get going. So next time what I'll try and do is get another video out as soon as I can, and we'll talk a little bit more. Again, probably one more boring concept, but that's really good and necessary for you to learn, and then something else that's a little bit easier and a little bit more fun. So we'll probably look at scales and introducing the concept of using your fingers more efficiently, really, which will allow you to play slightly more complex things. And then we'll also talk about open chords or natural chord voicings. And really what that is chords that, you got to know a bit more about what you're doing by putting one with the other, but they have a bit more richness to them, a little bit more emotion to them. So that's what will be in store for next time. And I'll see you soon. But just keep practicing. And I'll see you as soon as I can. Cheers.